Prime Minister, can you, you have been now to Gisborne, you have been here in the Hawke's Bay, you are getting information from right across the country. Have you got a grasp yet on the scale of this disaster?
This is undoubtedly the biggest natural disaster that we've seen probably this century. It is the scale of the damage is considerable because it covers such a large geographical area. We know that it's going to take some time to really get a handle on exactly the extent of the damage and how long it's going to take to fix that damage.
Right now, we're looking at a number of around 10,000 displaced people. Is that here? Is that right across the country? Do you have an estimate of how many people have been displaced?
It's difficult to put an accurate number on the number of people who have been displaced because in some cases people will have displaced themselves and they will have gone in to stay with friends and family, and we won't necessarily have a count on that. We know that there have been thousands of people though across the country who have been staying in temporary accommodation in our evacuation centres overnight.
Yeah, and those people, those thousands of people are in survival mode. They have been now for days. They've lost loved ones, they have lost their homes, they've lost their livelihoods, their lives have been turned upside down. So what happens to them now?
There's not going to be one answer for every one of those people. Some people will be able to return to their homes once they're given the all clear to do so. Some of those homes might have only been moderately damaged or not damaged at all. They might have been evacuated as a precautionary measure. On the other hand, there are people who have lost everything. They've lost their homes, they've lost everything that they had.
What happens to them?
And we will make sure that we're supporting them through. Now, that's a complex picture because you've got to deal with insurance, you've got to deal with government support. You know, it's a puzzle that will need to be assembled. We will work with them to make sure we're assembling that puzzle though.
We have seen people sleeping on blow-up mattresses, on stretchers in evacuation centres. How long can they go on like that? And where do you put thousands of displaced people in a devastated region?
Look, we'll be working as quickly as we can to get people into more stable accommodation. In some cases, those people will have other places to go once we can get the logistics of that sorted out, once we can reopen some roads and so on. Others are going to need more support, and that might be temporary or emergency accommodation, transitional housing. We'll be working to make sure that we're supporting people through this.
Ideally, when do you want to get those people into that kind of situation?
As quickly as possible.
Weeks?
Look, it'll take as long as it takes, but clearly we don't want to have people in halls on mattresses for any longer than they need to be. But we'll work as quickly as we can.
So what is clear to me, it'll be clear to you by now, is that this is going to take the full force of central government, isn't it?
Oh, there's no question. This is now going to be one of the major things that we are going to be doing over the next few weeks and months. It's focused on getting people supported through what is an extraordinary set of circumstances.
So does that mean special legislation? Does that mean a minister for cyclone recovery? Does that mean an agency? These are the sorts of things that you must be looking at right now.
In terms of how we best support the recovery, we've got a few days to work through that. Right now, the focus really is on that emergency response. But we are preparing for the recovery phase already. So we've got people working on on recovery preparations even while the emergency response is happening.
Because that emergency response is obviously crucial, but you have many thousands of people displaced and devastated actually. So they are waiting now for the recovery. And you will know that when people are in survival mode, the frustration follows shortly after.
So it won't be even across the country. So some places will be moving into recovery much faster than others. So in places where the power's back on, the water's gone, the clean-up's begun, they'll be moving into recovery more quickly. In other areas, they're still underwater, they still don't have power, and so we've really got to focus on the emergency response. So we will be doing both things simultaneously, and it won't be completely even across the country.
And when can we expect to hear a plan for the recovery from you?
Well, at the moment, as I've said, our focus this week has really been on responding to an extraordinary set of circumstances. There's not going to be one magical recovery plan that I just pull out of a drawer somewhere. We're going to have to work through and identify the true extent of the damage and how best we can support communities through that. And again, it's not going to be the same for every community because the impact has been different in different parts of the country.
But Kiwis will be very tuned in right now to what you have to say. They are looking for leadership in this. What can you say to reassure them, I suppose, that you have this under control, that help is on the way?
I can reassure them that this is, this is going to be an enormous focus for the government in the next few weeks and months. We will stand by New Zealanders through this. We will make sure we support people through it. It's going to be a big job. It's going to require a significant investment. It's going to require us to do some things differently. I hope New Zealanders will have seen from us over the last 4 or 5 years that when we're confronted with big challenges, that we can rise to that occasion, and that's absolutely what we'll be focused on doing.